ready. Yeah. All right. So we've been listening to some of the business leaders, consultants, give an idea about how new thinking is kind of disrupting industries, disrupting businesses. We have heard from academia about some of the new thinking around education and in the scholarly world. So the next topic is interesting. The new thinking is not only affecting the big businesses, but it's also impacting our social infrastructure and our communities. And our next speaker is going to be talking about how it's specifically doing to education. So I'm very pleased to introduce Kanya Balakrishna. She is a co-founder and president of the Future Project, which is actually transforming education and how the system is they're working with the schools to essentially change the way kids are getting educated. Their project is already active in more than 50 schools and has actually received funding from well-known names like Mark Zuckerberg and Google. So just a little bit about Kanya. She's actually the daughter of IIM alumni, and she's a Yale graduate herself, and she's passionate about family. She loves to write, and and I asked her about what inspired her to take this path. One of the things is that her mother is an educator herself, and I think she spent a lot of time in Washington D.C. and a lot of what President Barack Obama and others were talking about hope and change has really inspired her to take this path. So, Kanya, please.
Hi, so there's sort of two ways I could have structured this this talk based on the theme of Brave New World. One is telling you a little bit about what we do, the Future Project. We used the word disruption earlier. The Future Project is trying to disrupt the way we think about school, the way we think about education, trying to make us question assumptions, as we were just talking about what the purpose of school and of learning and of education really is. Sort of other way that I could have taken this talk was to focus more on the sort of discipline of social entrepreneurship. And that's what Ashima asked me to talk about. So I'm going to start there, but if you have any questions, I'll tell you a little bit about what the Future Project actually does. And if you have more questions about how we're thinking about the sort of obsolete, outdated education system that we've been talking about throughout the day today, I'm happy to talk about that too. But it was a lot of fun actually to step back and think about what social entrepreneurship really is and what how we even got into it and what inspired us in the first place. Because it's not something you sit around and talk about and think about every day. We're like trying to run our organization, and so this is a nice chance to step back and think about what does it really mean to be a social entrepreneur. So growing up, my dad, who went to business school, obviously, like most of you, I always thought of him as a businessman, and he got up every morning and put on a suit and went to an office and sat in a comfortable chair and used a nice pen and did business, and I don't think that I really ever knew what that meant, but I think what I learned from him early on was that the point of business ultimately is to out of building a business is to figure out what the value is that you could add to the world, and then to bring a team together to build an institution to create that value. But I think I also grew up thinking, and I think most of us, many of us, for a long time, have thought this way. I grew up thinking that, that world, the world of bringing value into the world through business, was sort of separate from the world of making change, of making social change, of solving, problems that face people every day in their lives. Don't get me wrong, I always thought my dad did good things for the world, but I figured that was happening outside of what he did in the office every day. I think for a long time that if you wanted to really do good in the world, you had to do it through direct service. You had to be a doctor, you had to be a teacher, you had to be a social worker, you had to directly work with people every day and help improve their lives one by one. But I think those assumptions have been, really challenged for me in a lot of ways over the last couple of years. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about that journey, like my journey into social entrepreneurship, and then I'm, excited to have a conversation and take any questions you might have. So, as was mentioned, I graduated college from Yale in 2009, and I had a Yale degree, and I had some job offers, and I had things that I was passionate about. I was already passionate about young people, about education. I, learned a lot through my experience working in the college newspaper and mentoring and teaching in New Haven, but I didn't. And I saw, like we all do, I saw a lot of problems in the world, and especially problems facing young people, but didn't really know what to do about it. Didn't know how to go about making change beyond, again, direct service volunteering, spending time with young people and in schools. And I was sort of searching for inspiration. So shortly after I graduated, like so many other people in my generation, I was swept up by the message of hope and change and moved to DC. I ended up becoming a speechwriter working in the administration, which was amazing. I was a 22-year-old speechwriter. It was really exciting, and had a lot of interaction with a lot of people who were trying to do big things in the world. But I was restless, and I think I realized that in so many of my peers, we were restless. We were, we got excited by hope and change, and then we were working for the government, which is not quite as exciting as it seemed like it might be when the campaign was happening. And so, I think I started having a lot of conversations with people about what we were missing, and, came to the conclusion with some other folks that, my generation was looking to be part of something bigger than ourselves. It's something that I think, most people are. We're looking to be part of something, to be called to action, in the way that we all felt a little bit called to action by the campaign in 2008. No matter what your politics were, you sort of felt that energy. So my generation, I think, was searching for something to be part of, something bigger than ourselves, something like the Peace Corps was, I think, in the 60s for many young Americans. So we started to dream. We started to, me, my co-founder Andrew, and then soon a lot of friends and volunteers, we started to come together and ask ourselves, big questions. How do we create a call to action for our generation? How do we ensure that, young people forevermore, and so sort of what we were just talking about, how do we ensure that young people actually are able to develop that sense of purpose, that sense of passion that will drive us, that will help us to figure out how to make change in our lives and in the world, and why is it that, the place where you're supposed to learn, how to make change, how to figure out who you are, which is school, why isn't it doing that for us? Why do we go through 12 years of education before we ever get to college, if we get to college? Why do we go through 12 years of education, come out not knowing what we want to do necessarily, because there's plenty of time for that, and there's plenty of time to try and fail and experiment, but why do we not come out even really knowing who we are and what we might be passionate about? And so I think we started to come, look at the world. I think oftentimes when people come together, to build a startup, to build an organization, they're coming together because they see one really specific problem in the world that they're passionate about solving. I think in our case, we were seeing how many problems there were in the world. There's climate change, there's there's health, access to healthcare issues, there's gender inequality, there's racism, there's authoritarian governments. Donald Trump is running for president. There's a lot of problems in the world today, and so we were sort of coming to the conclusion that if we could figure out a way systemically to really empower and equip people, young people, to solve the problems that they were really passionate about, and to learn the skills that they really need, the practical skills that they really need to learn to make change, then maybe some of these problems, over time, could really be tackled. It was around that time that I learned about Ashoka, both the emperor and the organization. Many of you probably know the story goes that after unifying South Asia by force and through a lot of violence, Ashoka had a change of heart, professed tolerance, and devoted the rest of his life to making change in communities. So, he created public medical services, he did infrastructure projects, he tried to figure out how to create innovation at that time that was going to benefit the community. There's also this organization based in DC called Ashoka. The founder of Ashoka created the idea of the social entrepreneur and head of social entrepreneurship. He said, what if we were able to bring, the principles of business, the things that I guess my dad was doing in his office when I was a kid, if we were able to bring those principles to the solving of big social problems that exist in our world. And so I learned that there was a way that if you have an idea and you want to bring it to life and you want to mobilize massive change, that there was a way to do that, through business and by applying principles of business, and that was social entrepreneurship. And I think that the biggest thing that defines a social entrepreneur is that they don't wait for government. So, we were all working for the government, and so we decided to just go for it. It was a crazy time. We Andrew and I soon gathered a team of volunteers across the country. We all had jobs still at this time, so we would come together on the weekends and on conference calls at 9 o'clock at night and just be dreaming about what we could build together and we had a vision. We had these big questions we were asking. What if every young person could live a life in which they were passionate and purposeful? What if school was a place that was truly inspiring and that that really taught the skills that you need to learn to make change, that helped you figure out what you were passionate about, and so we were asking ourselves these questions. And we had the name The Future Project. We came up with that really early on. But that was it. We were coming together, we were asking all these questions. We had no idea how to build a business. We had no idea how to build a company. We had no money. I was putting things on a credit card. My dad would be really mad if he knew that. I was putting things on a credit card that eventually had paid off. We had no knowledge of how to build a budget, how to build a team beyond getting people excited and bringing them together. We were all sleeping on each other's couches, going from city to city, trying to connect with other people who we thought would be excited by this bigger vision. I have pictures in my email from back in those days. The team would send me a picture of a bag of rice and a can of beans, and they're like, "This is what I'm eating for dinner because you're not paying me anything to do this work." But it was great. It was so much fun. It was such a struggle, but we were committed to this vision. We knew we wanted to build this world, and we knew that we wanted to build it by reimagining what the purpose of school could be. And we also, I think, once we started to learn what social entrepreneurship really was, we were committed to the vision of building